So at the moment, there's not a lot of UFC going on, but what we do have is Bellator MMA versus RIZIN Fighting Federation on New Year's Eve 2022, the 31st of December. A huge event, RIZIN versus Bellator, taking place in Japan. I'm really looking forward to it as well, because actually after this event, there's going to be potentially another Bellator versus RIZIN event in the USA. So it's going to be really exciting and something to definitely look forward to. But I'm really looking forward to the events. It's definitely something to take notice of. Another event to take notice of as well is it's not the only RIZIN event taking place on this day. This event is going to be on at 8 PM Eastern time. I believe it's going to be a little bit delayed on Showtime from my understanding, but you can watch RIZIN 40 live at 4 AM. 4 AM Eastern time if that's what you're interested in. I believe this is almost going to act as some sort of preliminary card, but this is also a massive card. You've got Patrick Shawusami, who was on the road to UFC. John Dodson's going to be fighting Hideo Takuro. I believe both guys have been fighting in major promotions recently. I know John Dodson fought at XMMA for a little bit and had a long career at UFC. Hideo Takuro has been fighting in Bellator, RIZIN, Dream, K1, literally anywhere you can imagine, he's been there. We've got a couple of other pretty cool fighters. Rogerio Bontorin just recently got released from UFC. He's going to be on there. Naoko Inoue is a pretty good fighter as well. I believe he was a former UFC fighter. Junior Tafa, massive prospect in my opinion. This guy was actually meant to fight on Dana White's Contender Series last year as his professional debut. So we know that UFC is looking at this guy. And this is going to be cool. If he beats Tsuyoshi Sudario, he's going to get signed to the UFC or Dana White's Contender Series, one of the two. And Seika Izawa is on a roll right now. She's absolutely dominating the women's 108-pound division. And I really think, at only 25 years old, I know she's an atomweight, she might be a little bit undersized for women's strawweight, but man, UFC needs to have a serious look at trying to get this girl into their promotion. You know, she's beaten a couple of really, really good fighters, including the pretty dominant at the time, Ayaka Hamasaki, who's 23-3, and then she beat her again. She was 4-0 and 5-0 when she beat her, and then she fought another undefeated fighter, finished her in the first round. We're talking about a legitimate prospect. Oh man, I feel like UFC needs to try and sign her. But yeah, I thought I'd better talk about RIZIN 40 before we get into it. But yeah, let me know what you think of this card. It's going to be stacked. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to watch it. I know this is the We Want Picks YouTube channel. I know you're just here for the picks. I'm going to try and make this quick. But I do feel like a lot of people are going to be asking in the questions, how can we actually watch the event? Because there's actually two ways you can watch it to my understanding. I could be completely wrong on this. This is how I understand it. So the US broadcast, I believe, is going to be on Showtime, like most Bellator events are going to be on at 8 PM Eastern time. But at the same day, there actually is another RIZIN event which is going to be on Fight TV at 4 AM Eastern time. And if you actually look at the Fight website, you can actually buy the pay-per-view, which looks to me like it's a 2-in-1 package. You watch RIZIN 40, and then after that, there's going to be RIZIN versus Bellator. So from my understanding, RIZIN 40 and RIZIN versus Bellator are like two events. The RIZIN 40 is going to be your prelims, and then RIZIN versus Bellator is going to be like your main card sort of thing. So if you wanted to get up pretty early in the morning, like 4 AM to watch RIZIN 40, you can do that. Or if you wanted to get up like 7 or 8 AM or so, is when I'd assume the RIZIN versus Bellator card is going to start, you can do that as well and buy the pay-per-view, kind of figure out when RIZIN versus Bellator is actually going to be completely live. Or what you can do is, I believe what Bellator and RIZIN are probably expecting you to do, you can go on Showtime, and you can watch it on Showtime, and it's going to be on 8 PM Eastern time. So if you've got like a New Year's Eve party or something like that, and there's a lot of people that like MMA, you can throw this on in the background, and maybe you can talk about it, and people will maybe recognize a couple of fighters because there's a pretty big event. But because RIZIN 40 is the prelims, in my opinion, it's going to be acting like a preliminary card. I'm going to quickly talk about this event. So Patrick Shawusami, former Road to UFC fighter. John Dodson, obviously former UFC fighter. A lot of people know him. Hideo Takuro fought for Bellator, RIZIN, K1, and another major promotion as well a long time ago. Rogerio Bontorin was recently released from the UFC. Naoko Inoue is also a former UFC fighter, and he's a great prospect as well. Junior Tafa is the brother of UFC fighter Justin Tafa. Tsuyoshi Sudario, I believe, is a former sumo wrestler, and they're both having very good professional careers so far. Junior Tafa as well, if I didn't mention, is a former Glory kickboxer. I think I might have said that. But Seika Izawa as well is an unstoppable force at women's atomweight as well. But I thought I'd better just quickly talk about that because I felt like maybe a couple of people are going to want to know how and when to watch the fights. But with that being said, let's just jump straight into the picks finally. So we finally got to the first fight. Hopefully you guys didn't mind the long intro. Koji Takeda taking on Gadzi Rabadanov, and this is going to be taking place in the RIZIN ring as all of the other fights are, which is definitely going to be something that I am paying attention to, the fact that the fights are going to be taking place in a ring and not a cage. A lot of the Bellator guys are probably a lot more used to fighting in a ring. In a cage, I mean. I'm gonna get so confused when talking about these fights, but Koji Takeda versus Gazi Ramadanov is actually a pretty good fight, and it's an interesting stylistic matchup because Koji Takeda is a pretty dominant wrestler himself if he wants to be. On the feet, he is actually a very fast boxer, and he does have a very Sean Strickland sort of striking style. He does a lot of parrying, which does lead to him being able to get a lot of counters off with his speed. But another thing I'm going to mention is he is pretty hittable on the feet because of it. If he does miss the parry, he's going to get hit straight in the face. But they've both got pretty similar styles because Gazi Ramadonov's a pretty good wrestler with very strong top control, but Koji Takeda is kind of the same. He's a good wrestler. He likes to get takedowns in the middle of the ring. He doesn't necessarily work too much against the edge of the ring, but he can if he needs to. And the reason for that is because it is a ring. This isn't really the best image for it, but I will be looking to this image to kind of explain what I'm talking about here. So in the cage, obviously, you see a lot of guys working up against the cage walls, and earning a lot of control time from that, trying to get a dominant position against it. But what you see in RIZIN, or at least what I've seen from the researching of this fight, is the guys do work up against the ropes of the ring here, I guess you would describe it as, but they don't really put as much pressure as what the guys do when they're fighting in the cage. But what they can do is they can actually work here against the corners, against the posts, I guess, and you do see a lot of pressure being put on the posts, but not necessarily in the ring. So I thought I'd better bring that up, and obviously Koji Takeda is a lot more used to that than Gazi Ramadanov is with his wrestling style, and he can work up against the ring, can work up against the ropes, but when he does get guys in the corner, he puts a lot of pressure on them, and then he kind of pulls them away, and then gets like a big slam in the middle of the ring. So definitely something to also pay attention to as well. And a lot of guys can't use the edge of the cage anymore to try and stand up. They're going to have to use these posts. The Bellator guys will try and stand up while in the middle of the ring. So once someone gets to the ground, it's not necessarily the easiest sort of thing to try and get up anymore. But Koji Takeda, he is a pretty good wrestler and grappler, but one thing I have noticed is he's not really fighting the best level of competition recently. He did recently beat Zach Zane, who was 15-3, and Zach Zane's a pretty good fighter. Like, he fights everywhere. He fought for Dana White's Contender Series. He's fought for Eagle FC. He's fought for Bellator. He's fought everywhere. He's fought for RIZIN now, as well. But he beat Johnny Case as well, which was a pretty competitive fight, which he did win the decision. He lost to Spike Carlisle, who is just crazy. Let's be honest, former UFC fighter. Noah Bay is 1-1. And lost a couple of fights in there as well. But Gazi Ramadonov's on a pretty good streak since he got to Bellator. He's on a 3-fight win streak against Daniel Carey. He beat JJ Wilson, who was undefeated at the time, from New Zealand like me. Tough, and then he beat Bobby King as well. But Gazi Ramadanov also likes to use a wrestling style when he likes to use his top control. He can work for submissions, but for the most part he is just trying to smother his opponents with a top control. Kind of similar to Koji Takeda, but Koji Takeda does have very good ground and pound and a pretty solid submission ability as well. He submitted Zach Zane pretty easily, but Ramadonov's got 7 decision wins in his career and then a mix of KOs and submissions. I do think in this fight it's going to go the distance. Koji Takeda, I believe, has 8 decision wins on his record and a few submissions and then a couple of KOs as well in there, but he did submit Zach Zane pretty easily. That was a very dominant fight. You can actually watch that on YouTube. You can watch it a lot of these RIZIN fights on YouTube as well, actually, but yeah. He dominated Zach Zane, kind of put him up against the edge of the ring. I'm going to get confused with Cajun ring a lot. Up against the ropes, put him in the corner here, up against the corner, and then took him down in the middle of the ring and then submitted him. So, pretty good win for Takeda, but the pick is Gazi Ramadanov. He is the favourite here. He is minus 250. I think the odds might be a little bit too wide, but it is going to be a fun fight. I do believe Ramadanov is going to win the fight as well, obviously, as I literally just said. I can be an idiot sometimes, but I do like the level of competition he's beaten in Bellator, especially JJ Wilson, who is a very solid fighter with a couple of good wins in there. Koji Takeda, he's definitely dangerous. He's a good wrestler himself. If Koji Takeda can get the takedown first, it will be interesting to see if Gazi Ramadanov can work his way up without having a cage to help him. But I like Ramadanov on the feet as well. He's got a little bit of a reach advantage. Takeda is pretty hittable. Both guys are pretty good strikers. I think that Takeda is probably the faster boxer, but he does like to use his wrestling. Ramadanov decision is the pick, and I'm looking forward to this fight. It's actually very well matched in my opinion. 2 guys with somewhat similar styles as well fighting each other. One thing I will throw in there as well is when Takeda gets on top, the first thing he kind of does look for is position, and then from there it is ground and pound and submissions. He does throw pretty good ground and pound, and he definitely is pretty lethal with it, but Gadzi Ramadanov is pretty similar as well. He does like to throw ground and pound first, as well as getting top position. So both guys very evenly matched, a very similar matchup, and I do understand why they've done it. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great fight. During the last fight, I was saying how I completely understand why the matchmakers made that fight, but this next one, I'm a little bit lost because it's not a rematch, and it's not the first time these guys are fighting each other. It's actually the third time that they're fighting each other, and Kyoji Horiguchi has actually won both of them. Kyoji Horiguchi recently beat him in 2018, so I guess it's not super recent, but on RIZIN 11, you can easily find the fight on YouTube as well, by the way. It's pretty easy to find. There's like millions of views on it as well. And he beat him in Shooto as well in 2013. He's already beaten him twice, and in that second fight in 2018, he actually beat him in his own game. Like, Hiromasa Ojikubo, he seems to be pretty one-dimensional to me. Like, he's got 28 wins, but 20 of them are by decision, 7 of them by submission, 1 by KO. This guy does shoot for takedowns all the time. I'm talking about Hiromasa Ojikubo. And in that first fight in 2018, Kyoji Horiguchi did have to defend a lot of takedowns. He was put in a couple of awkward positions at times, but he really had his number on the feet, and he was out-grappling him when the fight was getting to the mat. He was getting on top of Hiromasa. He was controlling him as well, and I just don't see how that is really going to change. I know Kyoji Horiguchi hasn't been on the best run recently. I know Hiromasa Ojikubo has, because he was on a pretty good win streak before he ran into Suchol Kim, who is going to be the next fight after this as well, which is going to be pretty awesome. But it's going to be taking place at 125 pounds, which is going to be worth noting here at 57 kg flyweight. I believe it's going to be like 124, 126 pounds sort of thing. Kyoji Horiguchi and Ojikubo are going to have to cut a little bit of weight. I guess both of them have been fighting at bantamweight recently, but Ojikubo, he beat Kai Asakura, is a really good fighter. Naoki Inoue is a really good fighter. He's fighting on RIZIN 40. He's been beating a couple of other guys as well that are pretty experienced. But Kyoji Horiguchi, 2-3 in his last 5, lost to Kai Asakura, who Ojikubo did beat. But then he did beat Kai Asakura again, and then lost to Sergio Pettis in that fight, which I believe was like a last-minute loss. And then Patchy Mix as well defended a lot of submissions there, which he might have to do against this fight here, and then beat a guy that just wasn't his level really. But I think Kyoji Horiguchi is going to beat Hiromasa Ojikubo here. The lines are like minus 550 Horiguchi. Where is he? Minus 552, minus 400 at best, and then minus 500. So you get in Kyoji Horiguchi like minus 500 sort of area, and then you can get Ojikubo like minus 300 to minus 400, because I think it just comes down to the fact that Kyoji Horiguchi has already beaten him twice. But if we are going to talk about the matchup, I think Horiguchi's got a massive advantage on the feet. Ojikubo is going to be shooting for takedowns a lot. That's what he does. He shoots for a lot of takedowns. Kyoji Horiguchi is probably going to be put in a couple of awkward positions because it is in the ring. But it's not really like Kyoji Horiguchi's never fought in a ring before. He has spent a few fights of his career inside of a ring. So it's not like it's going to be something new to him like a couple of other fighters on the card. I just see Horiguchi winning this one again. He's already beaten Ojikubo twice. He beat him by finish one time, by submission. Horiguchi doesn't actually have that many submission wins on his record as well. I think he might get another one. Like he did recently submit Yuta Hakamura, who just wasn't really the same level as him, but I do think he's going to beat Ojikubo by submission again. Because Ojikubo is going to be consistently shooting for takedowns and trying to get those takedowns, I think Horiguchi's going to do the same thing. He's going to control him on the mat, defend a couple of takedowns. If it does get to the ground, I think he's going to reverse the positions, control him on the mat, and work for a submission from there. So, yeah, give me Horiguchi. I think he's actually going to finish Ojikubo on this one here. Not really a popular pick, but I do think it's going to be a submission here because, just as I said, I think Horiguchi's just better, and he really has proven that over time. And also 125, fighting at flyweight is interesting. But yeah, I don't really mind it, I guess, for both guys. But yeah, I think Horiguchi's got the advantage in this matchup here. Definitely on the feet, 100%. In fact, he might even be able to get a KO because Ojikubo was kind of running from him at times in that 2018 matchup. But I do want to move on to the next fight because I'm talking about a fight where one guy's already beaten the other guy twice. So let's just move on, eh? And as I was saying with the first fight on this card, Koji Takeda versus Gadzi Ramadanov, this is a fight where the styles complement each other quite well, especially on the feet. On the feet, both guys throw pretty high volume and they're always trying to pressure their opponents. I would say Juan Archuleta is probably the better striker out of the two, but Suchol Kim does have some offensive grappling which he could use against Juan Archuleta, because we have seen Juan Archuleta struggle and lose to very high level wrestlers and grapplers. He has lost to Pitbull, the 145-pound champion, and then his two losses at 135 are to Sergio Pettis, a former champion, I believe, the current champion, but I think he's injured. I could be wrong. And then Ralphion Stotts, obviously a very good wrestler, and he did end up getting a head kick on Ralphion Stotts. And that's something that Suchol Kim does have in his back pocket. He's a very good kickboxer, and he does throw kicks to the legs, to the body, but he also does throw kicks to the head as well. I don't know, I feel like that's just something that was worth mentioning, but I think Juan Archuleta is going to be throwing more volume against Suchol Kim. I think he's going to be pressuring him quite a bit more as well. I was looking through their records as well, and Suchol Kim is a lot more experienced in the ring than Juan Archuleta, as I have said countless times, and I will continue saying it. The event's taking place in a ring, it's not taking place in a cage, and Juan Archuleta is not very experienced at fighting in a ring at all. I don't believe he's actually fought any of his pro career inside of a ring, where Suchol Kim has. He hasn't really fought for RIZIN much. I believe he's only had the one fight for RIZIN, but he has fought for ONE FC, which wasn't a cage. But when he was fighting for Road FC, those fights were taking place in a ring. So he's got a little bit of experience. He's got a lot more experience, at least, inside of a ring instead of a cage like Juan Archuleta does, which potentially could play a part in the grappling, because, as I said, you can't really use the cage walls, you can't really use the ring ropes to stand up like you can in the cage. You know, like a lot of guys, when they get taken down, they try and use the cage to help stand up. They put a lot of pressure on the cage, and then offensively they put a lot of pressure on the cage as well in the clinch. You can't really do that when you're looking at the ring here, if you know what I'm talking about. Not really if you know what I'm talking about, if you can understand what I'm saying. I feel like I'm explaining that terribly, but the pick is Juan Archuleta. It's another Bellator guy. I believe he's also the favourite as well. Very slight favourite, and I do understand why, and I feel like it's very important to note that Suchol Kim does have grappling in his back pocket, and it was taking place in a ring as well. So if Juan Archuleta gets taken down, he's really going to have to try and get up without using like a cage wall. He's going to have to try and get up in the middle of the ring. And Juan Archuleta is minus 150 in this matchup here to plus 125, which is Suchol Kim. I like picking guys with options, and when I do that, I probably should be looking at Suchol Kim in the matchup, but I do like Juan Archuleta. I like the level of competition he's been fighting over at Bellator. He's got that win over Apache Mix, which is aging very, very well. He's also fought at 145, so he's going to be a little bit bigger as well in the matchup, in my opinion, as well. He's also fought a better competition as well, in my opinion, as well. Suchol Kim has fought good competition, but it was over at Road FC, and he hasn't been fighting very often. He's fought 5 times in 6 years. Juan Archuleta's fought 5 times in about 3 years, so a little bit different there, but I'm going to be going with Juan Archuleta. I like his volume. I don't really like the lack of experience in a ring, but it's just something we're going to have to deal with, and I'm going to be picking him to win a decision as well. Maybe a KO is on the marks, but I don't think Kim's going to get KO'd. He's got a really good chin. He's very tough, and if he has to, he can grapple as well. So I'm going with Archuleta, but I think Kim is one of the most live underdogs on this whole card, because there is a couple of live dogs on the card, which I'm going to talk about when we get there. But I think that Suchol Kim is definitely one of them. But I like Juan Archuleta to win in this matchup. I'm going to go with decision as well. I wouldn't be too surprised if we get a KO, but Kim's got very good toughness. He can take a lot of shots, and I don't see Juan Archuleta being the guy to knock him out. So give me Juan Archuleta to win by decision, using a very exciting striking style, high volume, high pressure. Both guys are going to be throwing high volume, high pressure. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to this fight a lot. Now, this next matchup is Patricio Pitbull taking on Clever Cook Herbst. I'm so sorry if I said it wrong, but man, this is another really, really exciting fight, and I think it's great. I think it's a really fun fight. Patricio Pitbull, obviously the Bellator champion, just defeated Adam Borix, where he made Borix not look that good. Like, Patricio Pitbull really is on a good level, and he's also got that win over McKee, which is somewhat controversial as well. But yeah, he's the Bellator champion right now at 145 pounds, has been for a long time. He's been around Bellator for a very long time as well, so it makes a lot of sense why he would be on this event. But Clever Quick Herbst, when I first saw this match, I was like, oh yeah, Patricio Pitbull's going to win. He's the Bellator champion, this and that. But Man, I'm really excited about Cleaver Quick Herbs in this matchup, and also looking forward to it because he's definitely someone that I think you should pay attention to. This is his record, right? So he's got 31 wins on his career, 2 by decision, 2 by KO, 27 by submission. I mean, that is insane. And I'm looking at the guys that he's submitting, and they're pretty high level opponents. Like, some guys, you know, aren't really that great, I'm going to be honest, but he is submitting some really good opponents in there. He's also fought at KSW against Mateus Gamrot, lost that fight by decision, but yeah, he's submitting some really good guys in RIZIN. And one thing that I am noticing about Cleaver Quick Herbs, which is very strange and very weird, and I hope Patricio Pitbull doesn't do it, but his opponents are taking him down sometimes. Like, he just accepts takedowns because he's so good off his back. He's got 27 submissions on his record. A lot of them are also off his back. Technical triangle choke, rear naked choke. Obviously that was offensive. Triangle choke. Like, he's getting defensive chokes off his back. And one way that he does it is he lets people take him down. Another way that he does it is he just pulls guard sometimes. Like, sometimes he'll be pulling guard. He wants to fight on the ground, and he doesn't care if he is on bottom at all because he's got such good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's got such a good Jiu-Jitsu and submission ability. He's very exciting to watch because of that, because he does have so many submission wins, and he can get the submissions. But what that does kind of lead to me is he's a bit one-dimensional, you know, and I don't think that being super one-dimensional is going to be able to mean that you can beat Patricio Pitbull, because Pitbull's super well-rounded. Like, this guy's got like a very consistent amount of wins by submission and KO. He's like got like 12 KO wins and like 12 submission wins, something like that. Don't quote me on it, but he's very, very consistent. Like, he's got great power on the hands, but he's also got great grappling himself. And I feel like he's got the fight IQ at this point of his career to not take Cleaver Quick Herbs down, because Herbs is definitely going to try and throw off his submission here. So I'm looking at the odds as well. So Patricio Pitbull is about minus 350 favorite. Herbs is about plus 250. And the lines are pretty wide, like they are, but I think it really just does come down to the fact that Patricio Pitbull is the Bellator champion. And we do have to respect that as a fact. Like, he's been in Bellator for so long now. Like, I feel like he's really built his name there, and just yeah, he's been in Bellator. He's 22-5 in Bellator, but he's been in Bellator for like over 10 years, I believe. Since 2010, for 12 years he's fought Bellator, which is absolutely incredible. But yeah, I like Pitbull in this matchup here. I think he's so much better on the feet. But one thing I am going to say though in this matchup is, if Cleaver Quick Herbs is going for offensive takedowns, as I have said in the past, Pitbull's not going to be able to try and get stand up against the cage. He's going to have to try and stand up in the middle of the ring, because he can't really use the ropes to help him too much. And I have been referring to this image a lot, but I think it is important to bring up that it's not in a cage, it is in a ring. But I think it's going to be potentially a weird fight to watch, because I think Quick Herbs is going to be trying to pull guard. I think he's going to be going for interesting takedowns that is potentially going to lead to him being on the bottom. But I think if Patricio Pitbull stays smart, especially if he does end up in a grappling transition and he is in a dominant position, he's going to have to try and stay safe. But in my opinion, his path to victory is definitely on the feet. I think he's levels above Herbs. Herbs does have a pretty interesting kickboxing style. He likes to manage the distance, which is interesting, but a lot of grapplers do tend to try and keep their striking opponents away from them. But I think Patricio Pitbull, he's obviously a good boxer, he's obviously a good kickboxer. He just had a really good performance against Adam Barracks only a couple of months ago. He's been fighting often, which I like to see, 5 fights in 2 years. Herbs has also fought 5 times in about a year and a half, which is awesome. But I do like Patricio Pitbull in this matchup here. He is going to have to close the distance, which potentially could be dangerous because of the reach disadvantage that he does have, and also the height disadvantage that he does have. But it's not anything new to Pitbull at this point in his career. So yeah, I like Pitbull to beat Cleaver Quick Herbs. I think it's going to be a pretty fun fight. Like, I really do like this matchup because Herbs is so dangerous on the mat, but I do think that Pitbull is going to get the win. I would say by KO because of the level difference on the feet, but Herbs has never been knocked out before. So is that a hot take to say by KO? He took Adam Barracks to 5 rounds, and look, I'm going to go with Pitbull by decision. It's only a 3-round fight, which potentially could play in the hands of potentially getting KO, because he's got less time to work, so he's going to be a bit more active, you know what I mean? But I'm going to be going with Pitbull by decision. I think that he should be able to beat Herbs here. It's going to be weird, as I've been saying. I think Herbs is going to be trying to get the fight down to the ground, but Pitbull's just going to be beating him up on the feet, and I think it's going to be 5 rounds of that. So, yeah, give me Pitbull by decision. 3 rounds of that, sorry, Pitbull by decision. And now we've made it to the main event, AJ McKee Jr. taking on Roberto de Souza, and what an event this is, man, just to reflect on all the fights we talked about. It's so fun. I like the fact that we're getting 2 promotions, co-promoting with each other. It is something that happens quite a bit around the regional scene, but it's not really something you see with 2 massive promotions like Bellator and RIZIN, but I'm looking forward to it. I like the future of it, and it also is rumored that there's gonna be a Bellator versus RIZIN event again, but in the USA next time, so that could be pretty cool. But I'm gonna spoil the party. I'm picking another Bellator guy. Like, I have really been looking into these RIZIN guys and seeing if I can find someone that is gonna beat them. But I do think all Bellator guys are gonna win. I do think that AJ McKee will beat Roberto de Souza. But I was saying there was a couple of live underdogs on this card, and Suchol Kim is one of them. But I also think that Roberto de Souza is as well, because this guy's grappling is just so good. Like, he's submitting really high level fighters, and he's doing it somewhat easily, and he's doing it quickly too. Like, it's kind of crazy, and to see it happen, because he does have 10 submission wins on his record. He's got 4 KOs as well. He's never been out of the second round. He almost always finishes his fights in the first round. But just look at his last wins. Like, he beat Tafik Musayev by submission within 90 seconds, and Tafik Musayev has gone on a pretty good run. He's also got a win over Pitbull's younger brother as well, I believe. He beat Johnny Case by submission in the first round, who's on RIZIN 40. He's just beaten guys, really good guys. Notably Tafik Musayev by submission in the first round. He throws up a lot of triangles on the ground, on the bottom. And the thing that is so scary about this pick, because I am picking AJ McKee, as I said before, the thing that makes it so scary is AJ McKee doesn't really mind grappling. I think you should try and keep it on the feet for this one here, because AJ McKee's a really good boxer, he's a really good striker. He is very well rounded. He's a guy that Bellator has built up for, I believe, his entire career. I think he's actually spent his entire career under the Bellator banner. He's one of those guys that Bellator tried to build up, and it was a massive success. Yeah, he has. He spent his whole career at Bellator. You know what that means? He spent his whole career in a cage. He's never fought in a ring like Roberto de Souza has been recently at RIZIN, but I think AJ McKee's going to beat him by decision, which is such a crazy pick to do, because as I said, Roberto de Souza's never been out of the second round. He's submitting really, really good competition, and it's also at lightweight as well. It's at 155 pounds, and I have been somewhat vocal about how I do prefer AJ McKee at 145. I know it was his first fight at 155 since moving up a weight class against Spike Carlo, but Spike Carlo did look quite a bit bigger than AJ McKee in that one. I think maybe in the couple of months that it has been, he might have been able to blow up a little bit, or be a bit bigger for the 155 pound weight class, but I do like AJ McKee at 145. He spent his whole career there. But yeah, maybe if he's trying to carve out a new legacy for himself, 155 could be pretty good for him. But I think he beats Roberto de Souza. But this is the fight, man, which a lot of people are saying Roberto de Souza is gonna win. A lot of people are saying that if a RIZIN guy's gonna win on this card, it's gonna be de Souza. But I think that he's a little bit too one-dimensional again, because the thing is, AJ McKee, he is very well-rounded, and I'd like picking well-rounded guys, which is pretty hypocritical because I didn't pick Suchol Kim, but I do like picking well-rounded guys, and I think AJ McKee is much better on the feet. And I think although he is a good grappler, I feel like he's not really going to use that grappling offensively. I think he's going to use that grappling to get out of grappling situations, or I hope that's what's going to happen, because I don't want to see AJ McKee try and submit Roberto de Souza to prove a point. I kind of just want to see him try and beat him by decision, or beat him on the feet by knockout, which he has been knocked out before. Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting fight. This is the one that I'm really the most interested in, and I think it's the one that most people are the most interested in for quite obvious reasons. Roberto de Souza is a very, very live underdog in this matchup. In fact, is he the favourite? No, he's not. He's still an underdog. He's about plus 150, plus 160. AJ McKee is about minus 190, almost minus 200. But I like him. I'm so sorry, guys. I picked all the favourites. I picked all the Bellator guys. But I give in my reasons for it, and it does just come down to the fact that I think that Roberto de Souza might be a little bit too one-dimensional to beat someone like AJ McKee, who was super well-rounded. Like, this guy grew up doing mixed martial arts. Like, he's trained everywhere. This is AJ McKee, by the way. He's got jiu-jitsu. He's got the striking. He's got better striking than de Souza, who he's not just a pure grappler. Like he is somewhat well-rounded. Like he does have striking if he needs to use it, but it really is grappling through and through. And AJ McKee's a great grappler too. I just hope he doesn't try and tie up Roberto de Souza or get Roberto de Souza to the ground, this and that. I think AJ McKee's going to win the fight on the feet. I think he's going to keep the fight on the feet. I think he's going to land a pretty good shot. I think he might have Roberto de Souza hurt, but I don't think he's going to finish him. I'm going to go with AJ McKee by decision, by keeping the fight on the feet, staying out of submissions, and keeping the fight on the feet, and just winning with volume and power. One thing that I have seen commented, though, is that it could be interesting to see if any of the RIZIN guys get any dodgy decisions, but I don't think that's going to happen, man. I really do think that Bellator guys are going to win. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below, man. I'm very interested in this card. I think it's really good. But yeah, thanks to you guys so much for watching the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And as I was saying before, there is that $1,000 We Want Picks giveaway, which you're definitely going to want to be a part of. And I'm Artem MMA, talking about Bellator MMA versus RIZIN Fighting Federation on the We Want Picks channel. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very, very much for watching.